Hey guys, Mustache Tom here to review Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. Now, as I'm going into this review as objectively as possible, it is interesting that I have actually not seen a lot of trailers for this movie. I didn't feel like, say, like the previous movie I reviewed, Ghostbusters, The Frozen Empire, another Empire movie, was, promoting itself crazily, and in comparison, this movie's promotion was bare minimum. I don't remember seeing a lot of trailers for this movie, so I pretty much went in blind, with the exception of knowing that with a title like that and with a poster like this, that the two would be teaming up, even though the previous movie was them in a versus match. That being, if you remember, in that Godzilla had been the victor over Kong. Now, I will say, I think they probably should have considered titling the movie Godzilla and Kong, not Godzilla X Kong, as X does, unfortunately, on the internet, have the implication of shipping. Yes, I am dead serious. That is usually reserved more for shipping purposes, so I feel rather odd knowing that in the internet space before even diving into what this story contains, but I digress. So that's one thing that I feel would need to be improved, and there are plenty of other things in this movie that I think could be improved, but we'll dive into it. Anyway, let's begin. So we begin on Under Earth, as it's referred to, or, whatever it is. Kong is leaping around, chasing along, or avoiding the stampede of creatures. And as it's approaching this dead end, Kong has set up all these traps along the way, and he scares off the remainder of these creatures by tearing one asunder, or in half, and the goo of or blood of that creature spilling onto Kong. And Kong lets out his mighty roar. So obviously, as I mentioned, the other creatures, whatever they are, they're like small in comparison to Kong, I should point out. I suppose dog-like? They're quadrupeds, so I don't know. Anyway. So after that, he takes a little shower, clean off. And we cut to our main character. I believe she was in the previous installment. And she's giving a speech to her team about Hollow Earth. Or, yeah, that's what they refer to it as. Not Under Earth, Hollow Earth, excuse me. Anyway, we then cut to a spider-like creature making an attack, and Godzilla awakens to deal with that rather quickly. And I mean rather quickly. Charges up a quick laser after being grappled and lasers the spider creature to death. And that's about that. So yeah, Godzilla is just chilling on Earth, kind of sleeps until something pops up and then gets to work, essentially, is sort of what Godzilla has turned into it at this juncture, it seems. I'm not sure what time and space, more so the time part. I don't know how far removed this is from the previous movie, because when we see the daughter, she is significantly older in this movie, so it's been a few years, canonically speaking, in terms of the movie. At any rate, so both are dealing with their own issues, and dealing with them in their own separate ways. And of course, we have a different team also tracking Godzilla as well, that being a part of Monarch, or groups related to Monarch, if not them themselves. Speaking of that girl from the previous movie, we now follow her, and she gets visions now, which is not like the first movie. Now, I want to point out that in the first review, where I saw a lot of reviewers point out that she was the heart of the movie, I, when reviewing this movie, called her in the first movie a plot device. Boy oh boy, did I pre-predict how right I would be, and yet, still how far I was removed from where she ends up going in this movie, because, by God, she might as well be the Destiny Child for Monstars in this entire movie. Seriously, that is where she ends up at the end of the movie. I am not joking, that is what happens, but I'll re-detail those moments as we proceed forward. So yeah, obviously the mom is trying to make sure that her daughter is doing well, because she gets called out for having the said visions because she was in a classroom setting during this era or time. And Andrew, the woman, heads over to the podcast guy. I don't remember his name. I don't think they ever refer to his name. I don't remember. Anyway. So, Godzilla awakens once more. Unfortunate. And Andrew is talking up with some senator about the damages, about the latest attack and how they're going to deal with it, and, having these excuses and so on and so forth. So, the dirty work of monster attacks and so on. We meet a new character. I believe he's new anyway. I don't remember what his role was in the previous movie, if he was in there. Some guy named Trapper, who seems to be the caretaker, or one of the caretakers of Kong. They replace one of his chipped teeth with a different giant tooth, essentially. And so the others, Andrew and the daughter, check in with Kong while that's happening. So the team is getting ready to prep out, and the daughter convinces the mom to tag along, essentially, and they dive in to the underworld with Kong. Meanwhile, Godzilla makes his way to France, and I will say, a lot of what happens with Godzilla in preparation for the title of this movie to become true is essentially kind of a sideline. I mean, he goes from location to location, charging up various energies. That's his entire, her entire journey, as the movie correctly points out, because, of course, Godzilla would be female. Excuse me. Mistaking one's sex is poor etiquette on my part. But anyway, sadly, as they head down, one of their facilities that was down there, the one in the previous movie, is now wrecked. Meanwhile, we see Kong prepping up as well. He gets his axe, which has the Godzilla energy thing inside of it, if you don't recall. That's what allowed him to have a chance against Godzilla, even though he lost previously. And as Kong is moving about, he comes across a ape-like another ape-like creature, which is a phenomenon that Kong did not believe to be a thing, based on expressions, I suppose is a good way of putting this. But the ape-like creature attacks him after trying to kind of connect in a way. There are like 3 other apes that attack him. He's like trying to save one of them and they still try to kill him, so he kind of lets that one go. He yeets the small one into the various other ones. You know, Kong doing what Kong does, essentially. And we essentially then move along as this sort of mini-ape. Well, for the sake of the review moving forward, we'll just refer to this ape as Kong Jr. Essentially is kind of what he becomes throughout the movie. So we'll just call that little ape Kong Jr. again, just moving forward for simplicity's sake. Because I don't think it's given a proper name, not by the humans, at least. So, the people are brought in to this ancient civilization area, where they see some ancient tombs about Queen Mothra. The ancient queen, of course. The queen of monsters. She is the all-hail, the almighty. You know, even Godzilla, even she's like, yup, she's my queen, baby. And yeah, I know, I'm aware of the shipping of those two. That shipping is something I'm very familiar with. Not Godzilla x Kong, so hey, Kong, you gotta step aside, let these ladies have their relationship, okay? I don't know, I'm just being stupid. Anyway, so we see that some ancient stuff is revealed about how this all works, about how Godzilla essentially kind of separated the apes in this way, and how one of the apes, essentially not Kong, but another one, as they refer to as the Scar King, wanted to make its way back up to the surface to essentially get its revenge. And in that, we see that our pals, we see Kong deal with a sea serpent, then we see Godzilla deal with a sea serpent a little bit later on. But the human team starts to move into Tiamat's location, a sea dragon, for those unfamiliar with Tiamat. Tiamat does not appear in this movie, just a creature that is referred to, unfortunately. Though I guess that could be the 3rd installment, them versus Tiamat, who knows? Anyway. So, the daughter is brought into these ancient people's tomb where they meet the queen. And with that, the queen lets them in, while Kong and Kong Jr. are on the move. And Scar King has now been officially set up as our official threat of the movie. Kong sees the several more apes are alluded to here. There's like, I don't know, like 50 of them or so. I don't know. We see that Kong punishes this abuser ape that we see, but then Scar comes out and begins to mock Kong for having the tooth replacement. And this Scar kills Kong Jr.'s previous protector, like, assumably their true father, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah. At any rate, we see that Kong is prepping up with his axe, and Scar has his own weapon, which I can best describe as this bone whip, that seems to also control another creature that we will see, named Tiamat. Not Tiamat, to be confused. Tiamat is like a four-legged, I almost want to say armadillo-like creature, but giant and can frost things over. So Kong falls back, seeing how he is being overwhelmed. And as I mentioned before, the daughter becomes a prophecy child, or is destined to be a prophecy child. So, anyway, Kong Jr. comes in with an assist, and Godzilla powers up some more, as I mentioned. That seems to be her journey moving forward for now. And the mom begins to worry that the daughter would want to stay in this location, and so that becomes her sort of, I guess, mini arc, or whatever you would want to call it here. So Kong is making his way with some needed rest after his excursion, and ends up, just chilling a little bit. And Scar is moving closer and closer to that gate, sort of between them, bringing that Tiamat along. And as you can see in the poster, Godzilla at this point has the red spikes, as you can see on the poster there. So Godzilla has drastically changed. And I guess empowering up in this way is what changes Godzilla, as well as the challenge of Scar. It seems to be a combination of those two things. At least that's what the movie implies. But the humans begin to work on fixing up Kong, as he was a bit wrecked in his fight, which is why you see that metal arm on Kong's left hand there. They bring that in, essentially, to hook on to Kong. He appreciates the upgrade. So he goes back up to Earth to rally Godzilla. So he roars out. Godzilla hears it from however far apart they were. Godzilla dives into the water, just charging towards Kong. And our daughter, named Gia, by the way, that's her name, I forgot, and I put it in my notes only when they mention her name officially in the movie, goes to awaken Queen Mothra, because that is a thing she can do now. So Godzilla, seeing Kong and being in this new state, spears Kong. And of course they begin to fight once more. And Kong seems to get, with his upgrade, a slight beginning good start. Let's say that. But, Godzilla being the king of the monsters, even though, again, Godzilla is a female, so whoops. I feel like that should be rectified. Maybe we ought to start calling Godzilla Princess, since, Mothra's the queen. I don't know. Maybe we ought to figure that out and fix it. And fix it in post. I don't know. But yeah, that titling has definitely gotten a bit weird considering a lot of people gotta figure out Godzilla is a lady because, lizards and all that. That's how they work. At least that's what, even the America Godzilla movie, the 2000-ish era one, pointed out that Godzilla is female, so I don't know. Maybe the lore and maybe Godzilla's very sex has changed. Then again, that's something that animal type can do, so I don't know. I don't know what Godzilla be sometimes. Anyway. So, shocker that Godzilla once again overpowers Kong at some point in this bout that they're having, and the only thing that stops Godzilla from killing Kong this time is all hail our Queen Mothra, because of course Mothra can change Godzilla back to normal, because, Queen Mothra, she's just all hail Queen Mothra, just accept that she's all powerful in that regard. But anyway, so they are trying to now all stop Scar here and Tiamat, or Shiamat, excuse me, from entering Earth, because boy oh boy, they are gonna do some damage, and they actually indeed get to Earth. In fact, they end up in Brazil as their final set piece, as Shiamat begins to freeze the sky and some of the buildings over. And Scar's just ready to wreak some havoc, I'm sure, but Godzilla and Kong and some of their pals begin to team up. Well, we saw earlier that Mothra was, tying up some other apes that were on Scar's side. We see that the human guy, Trapper, brought in some reinforcements as well to halt their advance, to allow some gravity nonsense to happen. But that was all before they got to Earth. But now that they are here and still fighting, they do some team-up moves, that being Godzilla and Kong, because of course we gotta have some team-up moves here, like Kong tossing Scar into Godzilla and Godzilla doing a tail whip as one of the examples here. And eventually, Godzilla tears off the chain, meaning it will no longer work, and it's lost to its devices, so Shiamat is free from that control. So even Shiamat gets some well-deserved revenge upon being an enslaved creature on Scar. So now it's essentially all of them against Scar at this point, and they triple team his ass, having some blast happen with Godzilla, having Shiamat freeze him over, and Kong having the final move when Shiamat is frozen over to shatter Scar, into thousands of shards of ice. And yeah, that's what happens. So Godzilla uses his access, or her, whichever, I don't know. Again, Godzilla's weird like that, or cool like that, I guess, is a better word of saying. And uses its excess energy to revert the sky back to normal. Which is crazy, that Godzilla could just do that, but whatever. So, after the threat has been taken care of, they do their victory screech, And Godzilla's like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to the place I was kind of just sleeping at and go back to sleeping. Kong returns with Kong Jr. and Tiamat back to the underground and joins the other apes. And that was Godzilla X Kong the New Empire. And yeah, outside the daughter getting like this super upgrade, I think more people, generally speaking, I think more people are, at this point at least, coming into this movie, I would assume, just wanting to see the team up of Godzilla versus Kong, or Godzilla with Kong, excuse me. And yeah, it does have one of those weird moments where it's reserved for the half end of the movie, and that's all you actually get of their team up. Where I thought that the first, sort of section, they were going to resolve their little conflict really early on in the movie and be teaming up for the remaining of it, but no, rather we save up to get that ultimate climax with the pair having their moments and their official team up. But yeah, we have, our ruler underground, Godzilla, or rather, I should say protector, because the ruler is Mothra, obviously. So ruler Mothra, protector Godzilla for above ground. Well, Godzilla remains above ground for protecting purposes. Kong remains the ruler underground, with Kong Jr., presumably, and maybe even Tiamat, because that creature's there with them at the end, so I guess so. As well as all the other apes that Kong can, look over now. So there's all that to look forward to. So who knows? Maybe Godzilla and Kong can team up once more for a new future threat, whatever that may be. I don't know how well this movie is going to do. I assume it must cost a lot to have this amount of CGI creatures essentially fight each other. So, I know the previous movie was very successful, Godzilla vs. Kong, so we'll see how this one pans out. In terms of a score, I mean, the story is kind of like, it's not great. Let's say that. Let's be real. It's not great. But I mean, there is a part of the more visceral side of people where they know that this is kind of what they're getting into, probably again from trailers. I would assume that would show off some of this stuff. Because I would assume that most often trailers spoil shit. So I'm assuming the trailer for this probably spoils some of the third action stuff. Again, that's just me based on every other trailer that practically exists in the current era and applying it here. So I'm assuming people are probably going to want to see the movie primarily for that rather than a quality story. But as a story goes, I'd probably give it like a 5 or a 6, if we're being completely honest. But I mean, again, it is more of an action movie. A pure action movie in terms of like, yeah, story is kind of like put to the secondary slot here. So I can understand people more so thoroughly enjoying this movie. I mean, I personally enjoyed especially the third act of this movie really well, so take that into consideration if you want to perhaps watch this movie, because despite me saying it or explaining it, seeing it is quite a spectacle all on its own. I would say that for certain. Anyways, that is my review for Godzilla X Kong the New Empire, and in And if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second will head you over to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. Any of that payment will be directly equivocated to getting better equipment, a better microphone, / a better computer at some point, but I think quality mic is going to precede that. And last but not least, there's my Discord server, where you can join, collab, shill, do all that cool stuff for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.